In his 2007 nonfiction work, Are We Rome? The Fall of an Empire and the Fate of America, American author and journalist Cullen Murphy draws thought-provoking parallels between the United States in the early 21st century and the Roman Empire during its decline in the 4th and 5th centuries. While Murphy finds many of these comparisons striking, he approaches them with caution and critical scrutiny, ultimately concluding that America's downfall is not inevitable. At the same time, he extracts meaningful lessons from Rome's demise that he believes the U.S. would be wise to heed in order to avoid a similar fate. Murphy begins by noting that drawing historical analogies between Rome and subsequent empires is far from new. One of the most enduring examples is Edward Gibbon's The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, penned by a British historian in 1776, the very year the American colonies declared independence from Britain. The timing, Murphy suggests, is telling. Contemporary British readers would naturally have been preoccupied with the fragility of imperial power. Yet the British Empire would go on to dominate global trade and naval power for another century, and while diminished today, it remains among the world's wealthiest nations. Murphy writes in the post-9/11 era, a time when comparisons between America and Rome are particularly resonant. Under President George W. Bush, the rapid expansion of executive power in the name of combating global terrorism and exporting democracy raised alarms. Critics have drawn parallels between this trend and the transformation of Rome from a republic, an inspiration for America's founders, into an autocratic empire. Tracing these echoes back to the earliest American colonists, Murphy finds that one of the most enduring similarities is a belief in exceptionalism. He links this mindset to Puritan leader John Winthrop, who urged his fellow settlers to view their new community as a city upon a hill. This imagery has remained embedded in American political rhetoric, perhaps most memorably invoked by Ronald Reagan during his 1980 presidential campaign. Murphy also draws attention to leadership archetypes shared by both civilizations. In the early Roman Republic, Cincinnatus left his farm to serve as dictator during a time of crisis, only to relinquish power voluntarily after securing victory. Murphy sees a direct parallel in George Washington, who led the American Revolution and then stepped down after independence was secured, returning only reluctantly to serve as the nation's first president. Such selfless leadership, Murphy argues, became increasingly rare as both Rome and post-9/11 America matured. Further analogies emerge in the realm of surveillance and public discourse. Murphy compares Rome's curious imperial spies and informants to America's modern national security agency. He even draws a cheeky line from Rome's famed sewer system to the frenzied, information-clogged world of the Washington blogosphere. To assess whether America is headed toward Rome's fate, Murphy examines the root causes of Rome's collapse. Historians cite a range of factors, from climate change and economic strain to governmental corruption and military overreach. The prevailing view is that Rome became too vast, inefficient, and unwieldy to sustain itself. The empire eventually succumbed to waves of barbarian invasions, culminating in 476 CE when Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman emperor. A crucial factor in Rome's downfall was the shift in military composition. Whereas Rome once relied on citizen soldiers drawn from across social classes, it later depended increasingly on poor and non-citizen recruits. Murphy sees a similar trend in modern America. As military service becomes more concentrated among lower-income groups, the nation's elites are less inclined to serve. To illustrate this, Murphy points to a stark statistic. 450 members of Princeton's 1956 graduating class enlisted in the military, compared to just 8 from the class of 2004. With fewer Americans willing to fight, the country increasingly outsources its wars to private contractors, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan, a practice Murphy argues undermines both military effectiveness and democratic ideals. Another compelling comparison involves the role of money in politics. In ancient Rome, the term suffragium originally meant the right to vote, but eventually came to represent influence peddling and outright bribery. Murphy sees an analogous shift in the United States, where elected officials are increasingly beholden to lobbyists and special interests. The modern campaign system, he argues, is so dependent on enormous sums of money that it weakens the bond between politicians and the electorate. Despite the sobering parallels, Murphy ends on a cautiously hopeful note, invoking the Roman historian Livy. An empire remains powerful so long as its subjects rejoice in it. In its review, the New York Times praised Are We Rome? As a provocative and lively work, one that challenges Americans to confront the vulnerabilities of their own republic while there is still time to act. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.